気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどう
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 13 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J, and with me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. It's a beautiful day outside today. I took a nice walk with the kids.
Gorgeous. It's been,
Gorgeous day.
I tell you, last week it was so hot that we did not record an episode because
I think it's the first time it's ever happened, but
I want to say we've done it at least once, or we've at least delayed an episode.
Yeah, but
before.
neither Matt or I have air conditioning, and it was so brutal. It was just like there was nothing. I just couldn't countenance the idea of sitting here with headphones on for the time it takes to do the show.
I do have one of those like air conditioning units, one of those like R2-D2 Dalek style, like you can roll it into a room and just sort of like put a hose out the window.
Oh yeah, those things are great.
They are great, but they're not quiet, and it would have to sit like right next to me, like the way that my room is set up. So either we could boil to death in the heat, or we would like make Mark have to noise cancel out a loud machine sitting 2 feet away from the microphone, and neither of those
options seemed to be worth it.
Dave, but you know what is good? Is episode 13 of Denji Sentai Megaranger.
Matt, can I just jump in? And I feel like, I don't know if I've ever done this before, but I feel like what you should have said is, you know what is cool, Dave?
Yes.
Opportunities
well,
lost.
I'll learn for next time, because it's gonna get hot again tomorrow. Anyway, Dave, our episode today is episode 13, Heartthrob. Our teacher is like the wind. But before we get into that, of course, as always, shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. Dave, it's our officially award-winning opening segment. Would you please tell me what our first star of the day is?
Well, Matt, time flows like a river and history repeats. Our first
sure
star is Isolation Update. Isolation Update. So, Matt, how's isolation going for you?
Oh boy, Dave. Well, there was the heat aforementioned.
Yeah,
that was
but that was going to happen
was a big
regardless.
part of my week. I realized that maybe I had made a mistake getting in, and I guess we'll talk about this in star number 2. During that heat, I was like, man, this maybe was not the best time of year to really get into baking my own bread.
It is, yeah, I did.
Because it was like 95 degrees out, and I'm like, well, I'm out of bread. Like
what am I going to do?
Yeah, man, all our stars are just blending together this week. But yeah, so I was like, well, I have air conditioning in my one room. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make the bread and turn my kitchen into like an uninhabitable hellscape. And then, like, when I'm not directly in the kitchen with the oven on, I'll just hide in my room with the one air conditioning unit until the whole thing is over.
Then, no, listen, that's a pretty good plan, man. Improvise, adapt, overcome. That works. And you had bread at the end of it.
Yeah, a very nice loaf, actually. This one worked out pretty well.
Glad to hear it. So,
what about you, Dave? How's your isolation
You know
going?
what, man? It is really weird because, again, I'm in summertime, and so I'm not normally at work during this time. And so the weirdest thing is finding stuff to do with the twins. So, like, for example, the zoo opened back up in a very limited capacity. They're like, oh, we're only allowing like 25% of the allowable people in, and like you have to like get tickets ahead of time and all this stuff. So we're like, oh, that seems fairly like it's outside, 25% capacity. That seems like it would be pretty, you could really stay away from people, no problem.
Now I know initially the zoo was doing something where like you could go to the zoo, but you couldn't walk around. They had it set up so that
we did that.
You could drive your car through. Was that cool?
if you were real stoked about getting to the zoo, it was cool. Yeah, you just like drove your car through the access roads of the zoo. It was neat. So but we went, and what we discovered is even 25% of the people is still a lot of people, because it's like you can really pack the zoo to the gills officially. So we're like, well, we're definitely not doing that again. And now we got to like isolate for 2 weeks just out of like, from even the people that we were seeing, just to be extra safe.
Right.
But we went to the art museum, and the art museum, I felt like royalty. It was like I was a visiting dignitary, and they had shut the museum down like just for me and my family, so we could have like a chill experience. There was like nobody there. So like art museum,
was it like officially designed to have nobody there?
Yeah. They also were like, we're only allowing like a very small percentage of our people in. And I feel like what's nice actually is that the art museum can sort of do that because they don't charge admission. So
right, the Cleveland Museum of Art is always free, and so they're not losing out on any ticket sales.
Yeah, like it's actually, they're probably saving a lot of money by not being open in a weird kind of way. So like art museum is back on. Beth took the kids to a blueberry pick your own blueberries thing today. So
fun.
Yeah, so like that's all pretty wild. So not a terribly crazy isolation update on your end or my end, Matt, but what is our second star of the week?
Dave's second star of the week is another installment of our hit new feature. It's Bun Vulcan.
Welcome to Bun Vulcan.
Dave, how are I already talked a bit about my baking adventures in the past week. What about yours?
So, I did do a new thing. I made a Bakewell tart, which
that sounds like something I would want, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, it is I have seen them on lots of like British baking shows. It's a classic British pud, as they say, across the pond.
Is that what they say?
I am fairly certain that is what they say, yes. I am certain that I have heard Mary Berry
I'll take your word for it.
Say that exact thing. So anyways, Bakewell tart, I actually didn't know what it was precisely, aside from it looks delicious. So I looked it up.
Sure, it's a tart that you bake well.
Yeah. It is crust with jam on the bottom and then almond cream. And that's
all right.
That's it. Did I talk about almond cream already? I think I did.
You had done something with almond and almond cream back a little bit ago.
Yeah. So anyways, I sort of cobbled together a recipe because like I looked at a bunch of recipes and they all looked slightly different, and none of them were sort of detailed enough for my taste because I'm used to using this like French pastry master's cookbook, and he's like super hyper detailed. And so I was like, none of these recipes look detailed enough for kind of what I want to do, like just to make sure I'm doing it right. But I felt like I had a really great moment, which was kind of a first for me in baking, which is I was looking at these recipes and I was like, oh, that's just almond cream. Like, you're not calling it almond cream, but I recognize all the ingredients and I recognize what you're telling me to do with them, and that's just almond cream. Like, I know how to make that.
And I've already got a recipe for that. So.
Yeah, so I just used like one of the pie crusts from this book, and I put jam on the bottom, and I made almond cream, and I baked it. Now, here is the thing I will say. I made a sugar glaze like to put on top, and it looks it looks nice, and it tastes good. And the Mary Berry recipe that I found calls for the glaze on top to be made with 300 grams of sugar.
That's a bit of sugar.
Yeah, which is about 10.5 ounces. So to be clear, that's not for the whole, that's just the glaze. Like you make the pie with jam, which is sweet, and the crust, which is sweet, and almond cream, which is sweet, and then you put 2/3 of a pound of sugar on top of that.
Just on top.
Just kind of, on top. And I was like, that's madness. I'm not doing that. That sounds awful. So I made a thin glaze with like 75 grams of sugar, and it was still plenty sweet. The idea of putting 300 grams of sugar on this thing is absolutely insane. But it was super easy to make, and it was delicious, and I felt really proud of how well it turned out. So
Nice.
that's my baking thing. Now Beth's birthday is tomorrow, and so I'm like, hey, what should we make? And she's like, oh, I don't know if I want anything. Like maybe just some ice cream. We really try to limit our sweets. And I was like, oh, we could just have ice cream, I guess, if that's what you want. Like I want to make something. So, we'll see.
That sounds very fun. My only other baking update this week is that I finally got a decent bread knife.
Oh, nice.
I have been struggling with this bread knife that I inherited years ago. That like, man, I don't even know if it's actually a bread knife or if it's like a serrated knife that is meant for other things. But I have been struggling with this thing, since I've been baking bread, because that is the knife that I have. I'm okay, well, this is just what I use. And then I was like, wait, they sell these. I could just buy another one that's good. So I tell you, man, using this new bread knife, because the blade itself, on top of being sharper, is also, like, the metal of the blade is much thinner.
Oh, okay.
So, and like
I actually
more
don't know
maneuverable.
that I own a... No, I do own a bread knife.
And so, like, it is like cutting this bread with a laser beam compared to my previous knife. It is so nice. Anyway, that's really all I got there. What, Dave, is our third star of the week?
So third star of the week, Matt, is... So I'm having a very weird experience, which is, as I talked about this a little bit last week, is that school ended in June, and then it just sort of stopped, and nobody talked about school, it seems, at all for like 5 or 6 weeks. Like, I didn't see it in the news. I didn't see it on Facebook. Just like nobody was really talking about school. And then
Maybe everyone assumed that somebody else was talking about it.
Man, that really feels what
somebody's got to be on top
Surely
of it, right?
somebody is making a plan for this. And then I feel like nationally, there was like a collective moment like 3 or 4 days ago where everybody went like, oh, holy crap. School is supposed to start again in like a month. Does anybody have a plan? And the answer is no. Nobody has a plan. That's not actually, I mean, like people are making plans right now, but now all of a sudden, the district that I'm in particularly is like scrambling to figure out what we're going to do. And the thing, like everybody's losing their mind about it. Like the district, like admitted the district people are over there like, well, we're going to have 3 different options and you could be in school part of the time and out of school part of the time and yada, yada, yada. And the teachers and the parents are like, you people are insane. That's never going to work. We can't go back to school yet. It is absolutely like insane and foolhardy to do so. This is a very bad decision. Why won't you listen to us? It's wild. So like I have no idea what's happening. Like theoretically, I'm going back to work in a month and nobody has any idea what's happening. There's not jokes about that. I just needed to scream into the void about it a little bit.
Also, I have no follow-up, Dave. What is our 4th star of the week?
So
I wish I had something for you.
No, listen, that would be great. I think everybody wishes they had something. You know, I did see a friend of ours, Beebs from college, post a really good thing, and it was like this 15-part Venn diagram, and it was like, you know, I want everybody to be safe. It would be very convenient if my kids could go back to school. It probably isn't safe to go back to school, but like I need something to do with them. And there's like all these different factors. And then in the middle, it just says like, I'm here. Like there is no good solution for this. But characteristic of America, rather than taking this opportunity where something has exposed a glaring flaw in our system to reevaluate, we're just kind of rushing back to get as normal as possible as we can.
Well,
it's
sure.
great. It's great. Everything's going to be totally cool. So Matt.
So it's our 4th star of the week.
Our 4th star of the week is a much chiller star, and it's just, it's a 4th and a 5th star. We did some fun stuff. We watched some movies and played some games, and there was TV.
There's nothing else to do, folks, so we're just going to talk about stuff we watched or played.
So, Matt, what have you watched and or played?
Oh, dude, Okay, speaking of watching things and playing things, let me start this off with a bit of an anecdote. I watched the recently released filmed version of the stage musical Hamilton.
Oh, I've heard of that. I hear it's very good. I think that that Manuel Miranda fella's probably
good.
going some places.
Yeah. He might even win an award for it, Dave. Anyway, listen, you are all people who exist and theoretically can hear things, which is great, or you're reading a transcript that someone has made, which I would be very interested to find out how that happened. Anyway, so you are all aware that Hamilton exists. You probably already know whether or not it is for you, and I'm not going to talk about that at all. Here is what I'm going to talk about. I was watching it on Disney Plus, which is the place that you watch it. The place where I watch Disney Plus is on my Xbox One, because that is the only device I have that plugs into my TV that can run the Disney Plus app.
Really? Apple? They're not hooked up with Apple at all.
I have an older version of the Apple TV device does not have updated apps for a number of the larger streaming services.
Gotcha.
Which is frustrating.
I also watch it on my Xbox.
Right. So, did you watch this?
No, I have not watched it yet.
Okay. So, I have enjoyed the music from this show in the past. I've basically only listened to the first act because I know what happens to Hamilton's life in the end, and I was like, man, the second act always seems like it's going to be a bummer. Maybe I'll just stick to the fun first half where he's growing up and falling in love and making friends and winning a war. That's all very fun stuff. Second half, less fun. Very good, less fun. So I'm experiencing the songs of the second act for the first time, and you hit a song that is this very sad, emotional song that happens sort of right before the final action of the show, right? It's this sort of it's Quiet Uptown is the name of the song.
Okay.
And I'm watching it and I'm like, man, this is really good. And I'm feeling very emotional because I'm watching this really wonderful show. And then because I'm watching it on my Xbox, what I had forgotten was that the night before, I had started a download of a new game.
Okay.
So I'm just watching this very emotional moment in this really great show, and this alert comes up on my screen, basically over Lin-Manuel Miranda's face that says Soul Calibur 6 is now ready to play. A soul still burns. A tale of souls and swords told eternally.
Wow.
Man.
Soul Calibur, man.
Yeah, it turns out Soul Calibur 6 is, the Soul Calibur series, is exactly what you remember it being.
I was going to say, that feels some series, make big changes, it grows and changes as, technology adapts and whatever. And I feel like Soul Calibur is just, it's like FIFA 20. It's the exact same game, just with, better graphics.
Pretty much, yeah. They've also included a bunch of very bad story mode stuff.
Oh, cool. I love a bad story mode.
And a character creator suite of tools, which is fun.
I have seen that existed before, but I did see the Monster Factory they did for it.
Yeah, I think that goes back to at least 4, maybe 3. Anyway, man, I remember, I think it was either Soul Calibur 2. I think it was Soul Calibur 2 is when they introduced the tagline of that game, which was a tale of swords and souls eternally retold, or something like that.
That's a tongue twister.
And I was like, man, now that there are actually 7 Soul Calibur games if you include Soul Edge. I'm like, man, imagine early in the series just calling your shot and saying, we're going to make this game forever. This is a tale of swords and souls eternally retold. You are never getting away from Mitsurugi. Anyway, Soul Calibur 6 is very fun, and Hamilton is good. I've got some other stuff, but Dave, what have you been up to?
So, we've been continuing to watch that show Alone, which I think I mentioned, competitive survival.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And Yeah, so there have been a few twists. They did a season where
have there been any turns as well?
Yeah, lots of turns, mostly
Okay.
just like around big trees.
So twists and turns.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay.
Twists and turns. And so there's a season where it's partners, and there's one partner who camps, and then they just drop the other partner off like 10-ish miles away, like hike through this like terrifying wilderness till you find your person, and then just survive as long as you can. So that was pretty wild. And we're watching a new season where they're in Mongolia. They're just like in northern Mongolia. Have a great time, guys. This show is very, very compelling. That's really, I've been continuing to play through, spend some time playing Skyrim with mods, and it's
fun.
Dude, you would be astonished. For someone who has spent as much time playing Skyrim as I already have, I really did think, I was like, I like tagging on this game and I'll like goof around a little bit. But I'm like in there, I rediscovered Black Reach and I was excited again. It's great.
The only other video game I've been playing is I picked up a game called The Messenger, which is a game that I had heard of, but I had forgotten that I had heard of it. Which is significant because there's a twist in the game that I'm about to spoil, okay? So spoiler alert for this game from 2 years ago that won a bunch of awards, I think. So, The Messenger starts off, and it's just like... It's basically like a Ninja Gaiden style game. But like, you know how like in your memory Ninja Gaiden is fun?
Sort of. Ninja Gaiden was actually like terrifyingly, frustratingly difficult.
That's the thing is like in my memory as a child, Ninja Gaiden was difficult but fun. Trying to play Ninja Gaiden now, it's like, oh, this game was just bad. Like it's not that I was bad at this game. This game is just like badly made. But playing The Messenger feels like what you want Ninja Gaiden to have felt like.
Oh, man, dude, there's got to be like a German word for that, but that's very satisfying.
It's super satisfying. And it's, it's a little like, it's like there are jokes in it. It's like a fun, made by people who are having fun with that. And you're getting through the game, you're going through these levels, and it's a bunch of like platformy, explory stuff.
Dig it.
And then you hit this point in the game, and here's the spoiler, you jump forward 500 years. And you reveal that like the story of this game is this story of like this cycle that repeats over time. But the interesting thing, and this is the thing that I had heard about but did not know was like I knew that this happened in a game, but I didn't know it was happening in the game that I was currently playing. Is that when you jump forward in time, the way that they represent it is that it goes from being like an 8-bit Ninja Gaiden game to being a 16-bit Ninja Gaiden game because you are in the future now.
Oh, that's great.
And so then the whole game becomes like this weird back and forth between like you're traveling through time because like the levels looked different in different times. And so you have to like do a bunch of like Metroidvania exploration stuff, but it's all based on this mechanic of shifting back and forth. And what's really interesting is that the two time periods, it's not like the way the game works, the way it must work is that the two different versions are both being displayed at the same time at all times.
Whoa.
But But like you're only being shown one or the other. Because like when you hit the time travel thing, there's just like a wash that goes over the screen and the graphical style changes. But like if there was a fireball that was coming at you before, that fireball is still coming at you. Like
you cannot like time dodge. Okay.
Right. There's no time dodging. There's no loading between the two. And it's just like when you hit this point on the screen, everything looks and sounds different because there's a separate version of the soundtrack that is done to sound like a Super Nintendo game versus a Nintendo game.
Oh man, that's pretty sick.
It's very fun. Like if you like that sort of like Metroid, like 2D Metroidvania, like platformy sort of thing, it's a super fun game. Highly recommended.
You know, man, that is the sort of thing when people say like video games as art, as like a really interesting and in-depth exploration of like what can you do that's like engaging and innovative in this medium. Like, that's the sort of thing I think about. That sounds really, really
Yeah,
cool.
like what are the sorts of things that you can do in that medium that you could only do in that medium?
Yeah. Man, that sounds like a neat game. Maybe I'll try and pick it up.
Yeah, it's really fun. And Dave, speaking of things that are fun,
Hey.
we're going to take a break. We're going to watch episode 13 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. As previously stated, it is called Heartthrob, Our Teacher is Like the Wind. It was written by Junki Takagami. Its original air date was May 11th, 1997. You can watch it on Shout Factory's website or get the DVDs. I recommend that you do. Megaranger is good. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Episode 13, Dave.
It's good.
Yep, they all are
It's
so far.
good. It is. I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit settling, if that makes sense. Like, we're hitting, like all seasons, I think, have their strongest episodes sort of like beginning right in the middle and then right at the end. We've talked about that at some length. And I feel like we're seeing that even within the context of Megaranger being really good. I think we are seeing a little bit of that dip.
Yeah, well, this is a Monster of the Week episode, right? Like, this is an episode that does not push the larger story of the season much. But man, if we had consistently gotten Monster of the Week episodes like this for like O-Ranger.
Oh, dude.
Like,
yeah, it's still a great episode.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. So let's get into it, man. So we see, we don't know that it's Kenta, but it's good. It's the feet, but it's a very Kenta energy.
Right.
I
Well,
would say.
those feet are on a skateboard, so that right there is halfway to strong
That
Kenta
right
energy.
There. Yeah, and there's a girl in front of him, and she's rollerblading. He can't get out of the way. They crash, and it's a pretty classic meet cute. He sort of is like leaning over her inadvertently. She looks up. Kenta sees her and is immediately... That's it. That's all she wrote. She's completely smitten.
It's funny because there is a moment before he sees her face where he's like, oh, come on, you were in my way. What's happened here? And then as soon as he's like, oh, she's a pretty girl, never mind. This was probably my fault anyway. I hope that she will talk to me. So there's nothing weird about this. This woman could be, I would say, anywhere between, legitimately, anywhere between like 20 and 30. Yes.
I had a very difficult time dialing in.
Well, and I think that this episode, like, she's very well cast for that, because this episode, it's kind of hard to tell how old she is for the characters.
Yeah.
And like what her relationship to them should be.
Very briefly, because you know immediately what's going to happen because it's talking about like a heartthrob teacher. This is obviously a teacher. We should say, she has a heart necklace.
Yes.
This is going to be important later. She leaves immediately after Kenta asks her out. And guys, I cannot tell you, I haven't thought about this in years, but I about fell out of my chair laughing when I saw this because this happened at our school. Not the school I teach at, the school Matt and I went to. Yes. Matt, do you not recall Jeremiah? First, you need to know the school that Matt and I went to, we went to a very small private school, and it was K-12, and it was small enough that all 13, I guess, grades were all in the same building.
Yeah, it was in elementary school, essentially. That size of building.
Right, and so, you would be a senior, and there would be, kindergartners, walking down the hall. And it was actually very cool. That was a neat element of our education. But, and we also had a school uniform. It was, a dress code, right? You had to wear, khaki pants or blue pants and, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But suffice to say, teachers did not need to follow that dress code. They just needed to dress professionally, but all the students did. 1 year. A dude in our class who was a year older than me, Jeremiah, there was a new teacher for she was a brand new out of college teacher, and she was for the second grade or something, and it was the first day or second day of school, but she was in dress code. she was just wearing like khaki pants and a green polo or something. She's like 22. She was cute. And Jeremiah like rolled up and shot his shot. And she was like, "Oh, I'm a teacher."
I cannot believe I do not remember this.
Oh my gosh. It was, I mean, all in good fun. Like, he was hugely embarrassed. But it was, he did legit hit on a teacher. So what we find out is that she's not really a teacher. She's a student teacher. They say a teacher intern.
Yeah. So, like, she is currently in college. And right. I think she is maybe a senior in college, because at the end of the episode, she's going to say, like, I'll be ready to teach next year.
Well, that's generally when you would do your student teaching. So they're in class with what's his name? He was in the previous episode, the lazy teacher. The lazy teacher who's good. Ukawa?
Ouya? It's Ooiwa.
So anyways, he's like, "Hey, you guys are going to have a teaching intern." Koichiro is very upset about this. He's like, "Dude, I got stuff to learn. This intern is not going to teach me right. She's going to mess up my stuff." And then she shows up, and of course it's her.
And Shun and Koichiro are both like, "Oh, hello, new teacher. How are you?"
Never mind. This is actually okay. Now, Mr. Oiwa, Mr. O does not do what he's supposed to do, which is stay there to observe the intern teacher.
Right. Well, we learned last episode that he's like, I'm going to go chill. You take the class. Have a nice day. So he leaves. She's standing up front. She's starting to take a roll call when Kenta comes in, who, of course, was running late.
Yeah.
Although he and the teacher were at the same place at the same time moments ago. She has managed to get here and start her job, while Kenta has, I don't know, taken a detour, stopped to take a brief
stopped
nap.
Off to play a quick round of Megaranger, is what I would say.
That is almost certainly what happened, yeah. So he rolls in.
So anyways,
they see each other, and they have this moment of like, "Oh, it's you! How fun! It's fun to see you again!" And everyone in the class is like, "Whoa, hang on. How do you, an idiot, know her, a teacher? That's weird."
Yeah. So the girls are very curious about this. They're like, "What's going on here?" I love that. I really dig this because I don't think we have really seen this even on teams that have two female rangers, which is that Michiko and Chisato definitely have like a little like click inside the context of the Ranger team.
Oh, absolutely.
Where they like everybody hangs out, but they also particularly hang out with each other and like gossip like about the male Rangers. Is awesome. So Koichiro is obviously very interested. The girls are teasing Koichiro.
Yeah, they're gossiping and they're talking to each other, and one of them says like, "What do you think their relationship is?" And the other one responds like, "I don't know. It's like a Beauty and the Beast thing." So after class, Koichiro like runs up to Kenta. He's like, "Hey, what's going on? How do you actually know this person?" And they're like, "Oh, so are you interested in her?" And Ko is like, No, of course I'm not. Don't be crazy." And Kenta says, "Well, then you wouldn't mind if I asked her out." But Koichiro would mind if she was asked out. But like is not willing to admit that he is interested in her, is only saying like, "Well, you can't ask her out because if she's going to be a teacher, she needs to like
be a
good person and responsible. And if she's spending time with you, then she's obviously not either of those things."
Yeah. Now, what is amazing is that while these two knuckleheads are like, you know, grilling up and like chest pounding about it, like Shun is in the background already making his move.
Dude, have you seen Shun's hair? Of course that's what he's doing.
Of course he's making his move. A man with hair like that doesn't wait.
So they are squabbling and they get to the computer lab, Shun is in there with the teacher. Oh, her name is Mayuko.
Yes, sorry.
He's in there with Mayuko, and they're just like doing computer stuff. And she's like, okay, well, I got to go to class. I'll see you later. And the two are like, what were you talking to her about? And he's like, oh man, it's not a big deal. It's just that she can actually talk about computers like on my level, which you guys can't. So we're just having like a connection moment thing. It's cool. I'm great. So let's just roll with that.
Have you seen this hair? So we go from there over to the Nezare dimension, and the new Ugande is kingpinning some putties. He's like having his own minions attack him so he can like practice beating them up. And Shibalina, she's like, so I found some stuff
on the internet.
The humans on the internet, I guess. She's like, turns out, I know this sounds crazy, the humans were using DNA programming to create the ultimate life form. Okay.
Yeah,
why
wouldn't they be?
Why wouldn't they, right? So what the ultimate life form is, according to this, is that it is a specially designed, like, biodroid, I guess, that can exist in deep space, like unassisted. That's the thing. And she's like, listen, they were doing DNA programming, but also like they're big idiots, and this was all just theoretical. But as it happens, we have like a magical machine that just turns raw DNA into a fully realized entity. So we're great.
So I'm gonna go down to Earth. I'm gonna steal the data. I'm gonna like find the data for this thing and then plug it into our magic monster box, and we're gonna use the thing that they designed to kill them. It's gonna be amazing. You're all gonna love it.
Oh my gosh! Like they're gonna be so disheartened. Now I like this because she's like, the good part of this plan is she's like, they'll be destroyed by their own creation. It'll be so disheartening. Big victory for us, the Nezare. What that assumes is that somehow they will be able to make known to everybody on Earth that this horrific monster is the result of like super ultra secret DNA, like cutting edge hyperscience DNA programming done by a person.
Maybe
like that's just a heck of a
distribute,
PR campaign.
Like pamphlets? I don't know.
Man, I guess.
Which they do not do, but it's a fun idea anyway. So we cut back down. I mean, you know, it's an idea to destroy the planet, so it's not that fun. But for them, it's fun because that's what they're into. So we cut back down to the school, and in the classroom, after class, Koichiro approaches Mayuko and says, like, hey, I just want to introduce myself. I'm the class representative. Just wondering if you can give me a hand with this question. I was looking at my homework and, you know, what? Just right here. If we could both sort of like lean over this piece of paper together and I can be close to you for a second while pretending it's about homework, that would be really fun.
Right, maybe
for me.
like smell your hair a little bit. It's weird.
Yeah, and so he's doing that. And Kento walks up and he's like, hey, don't pay attention to him. Koichiro is actually very smart. He can handle this on his own. I, on the other hand, I'm a complete idiot, and I actually do need your help. So please give me a private lesson.
So while they're about to like start chest beating over this, Shun rolls up, and he's like, "Hey, were you working, like, did you work in the lab that was doing that like giant genetic modification project?" So I guess actually maybe I need to eat my words that this project was way more publicly known than I would assume.
Yeah, or maybe it's just overachievers like Shun who know about it.
Yeah. So she kind of freaks out and like, not freaks out, but like is very clearly does not want to talk about that and like sort of rushes away. Kuchu and Kento are like, what's going on? And Shun's like, I just want the truth. I want to know if this person's going to be our teacher. And what's amazing is like, I don't think that he's lying when he says, if this person is going to be our teacher, I just would like to know if she's been involved in like top secret genetics research.
Yeah, and I think that the other two assume that Shun is doing this stuff to, like, try to, like, get in there and have her fall in love with him. But I think Shun does not care about that at all. Like, maybe he's still hung up on the robotic flautist from a few episodes ago.
Could be.
He's genuinely just talking to this lady. So we cut away from that scene to later on. The teacher Mayuko is walking down the street, and she's sort of lost in her thoughts. And Shibolena, in like a black trench coat and sunglasses, pops up from behind a tree and is like, "Hey, you there? Did you used to work in this guy Tanaka's science lab?" And Mayuko is like, "Well, yes, but that was a long time ago. I'm not with them anymore. Leave me alone." Shibolena is unwilling to accept this.
Yeah, she says, "You took it with you, and I want it." And then so she just attacks her.
Yeah.
She just is trying to, like, she doesn't even use, like, her crazy powers. She just literally is, like, trying to manhandle her and get this, whatever this thing is.
There's a moment where, like, the camera cuts and you see sort of a long shot. And as she is grabbing for her, this big, like, flock of birds flies away from where they're standing. And it just made me wonder, like, in an anime, that seems like the sort of shot you would see a lot. But this is a live action thing.
For sure. Like, I can see it in my mind's eye. Like, I can hear the bird flapping wings sound effect.
Yeah, but, like, this is a live show. Like, did they have a pigeon wrangler? Or did they just say, like, okay, there seem to be pigeons over there. We'll shoot over there, and then someone will make a loud noise.
Man, I bet you could. I don't know how much of a pigeon wrangler. If you live in a big city, I'm going to imagine there's just like crowds of pigeons. And they're just going to say, like, we're just going to wait till we see some pigeons. And we'll just hit that spot. So the Rangers are following. They sort of, like, run in. Shibolena dips.
Although, interestingly, like, they are not in their Ranger form. They are just in their 5 teenagers form when they run over.
Which does make me curious as to why Shibolena leaves.
Well,
because it doesn't seem like...
Shibolena is also, like, in disguise as a human, so maybe she's trying to be sneaky.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense. She's trying to maintain some degree of secrecy. So, our next scene, the Rangers are connecting with Dr. Kubota, and Kubota says, like, "Oh, yeah, like, I actually know who that person is, and I knew Tanaka, her mentor." And he says, like, this is where we get the information, like, what is the project? It was this native, like, you know, this unassisted spaceman. And he says, Kubota says, but Tanaka was so, like, he was concerned about what he had done. He was so concerned about it that he buried the project, got rid of all of his data, and killed himself to maintain, like, he literally took this knowledge to his grave, which he created so that he could take the knowledge to it.
Yeah, Megaranger, as it turns out, can be extremely raw.
Yeah, but the chip that, like, there was a copy of it, and the chip went missing. It's very obviously she has it. And it turns out that she was Tanaka's fiancée.
Yeah, and so the Rangers are all like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of information to take in.
Yeah, so here's the wild... Okay, first of all, we're going to see Tanaka later, and dude is way older than she is.
Maybe.
Like,
probably.
I feel like even at the far outside range of how old she might be, he is still dramatically older than she is. Second of all, she was already working in his lab. Okay, I feel like this actually could help us zero in. So, like, let's say she got a job, like, she got an internship at this lab when she was in her, like, junior year of college.
Okay.
She works there for a while, maybe through her senior year. They fall in love and get engaged. She graduates, works in the lab. We've done too much. We've played God. How could we? He offs himself, and she decides she can't handle the science anymore and decides to go back to teacher college, and now is in her, like, final years of preparation for that. I feel like she's got to be at least, like, 26.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't feel like she can be a whole lot younger than that.
Yeah, I mean, the this episode does not seem especially concerned with how old she is. She is sort of how old she has to be for any one of the scenes, and they kind of don't care about how old she is in the other scenes.
They don't care.
But you clearly do.
And there will actually be a reason why I think it is particularly relevant at the end of the episode. So we'll loop back on that.
Okay. Where are we in this episode? Oh, so now that they know this, they're like, okay, well, clearly the fact that she was attacked earlier was not a coincidence. She's probably in a great amount of danger. We need to go find her. So Kenta just goes straight to her apartment, which he knows where it is, I guess.
Yeah, which also leads up to like a number of questions, because at no point did they discuss this. He just kind of like rolls up to where she lives.
Yeah.
Now,
Koichiro knew where the lazy teacher was last episode. Maybe it's just a lot easier in this world for them to like know where their teachers live.
I don't know. We should ask Katie.
No, I mean like in the fictional world of Megaranger. I assume that like...
Man, I don't know. Japan's a wild place. Okay, so she's at home. She answers the phone. The phone rings.
No, weirdly, it's not a phone call. She gets a voicemail as like an email that she downloads and then listens to on her computer.
And it's Tanaka.
Yes.
Like, it's Professor Tanaka. So, sorry. In a moment, she's going to talk to him, and she refers to him as Professor. Which, again, is very weird.
Hey, man.
Given that she was his fiancée.
Listen, we don't know the details of their romantic relationship. Maybe it's a pet name. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, legit. I'm just saying, it's out of the Anyways. So it's Tanaka, and there's like a project. No. There's not a projection yet. He just says, Saotome, you need to make my dream come true. Whatever that means.
Yeah. So she like scrambles away from her apartment, and she gets a car, and she gets over to where I assume was where their now closed lab was. So she goes there. Kenta like sees her leave and follows her. She runs in, and in the computer lab, sitting at one of the desks, is Tanaka. And he's like, hey, so I'm dead, as you know.
As you know.
However, my personality and my will remained as a computer program. So now I am
I created.
So now I'm a cyber ghost of your late fiancé. And I need you to give me the data about the monster we designed so I can finish the project. Because I, as a cyber ghost, met somebody new, and they can help us complete it.
Yeah.
Mayuko is like, weird, but okay, I guess.
I mean, like, all right, I guess it. Now, Kenta jumps in and attacks the fake Tanaka.
Yeah, Kenta seems completely unconcerned with the possibility of getting cyber haunted by a computer ghost. So he just runs in, is like, hey, you, stop what you're doing. Tanaka, turns out, is not Tanaka at all. Because Tanaka is dead and did not make a cyber ghost. This is Shibolena, who is disguised as Tanaka. She grabs the data, knocks Mayuko out, and is like, listen, I'm going to dip. I've got some like little monsters here. They're going to murder you while I go do fun science stuff. So have a nice life in the next three seconds, I guess. I'm out.
Gone.
Kenta gets into a fight with the buddies. He does this bit of like transformation where he gets knocked behind a desk. And then when he pops back up from the other side of the desk, he is Mega Red.
Yeah, like he clearly is not terribly worried about being outed in this moment.
Right. Well, because the teacher is unconscious. And frankly, we don't see the rest of this fight. Like, it cuts to commercial break, and when it cuts back, he has beaten up the monsters, gotten the teacher, and brought her back to her apartment.
Yeah. Now, here's the big problem. Her pendant is gone.
Yes. Her pendant was like a locket that had a chip inside of it.
And Kenta very reasonably says, well, why didn't you just destroy it, though? And she says, have you been in love? Which is, like, okay, I mean, I get that. But, like, if my wife, whom I love, had created, I don't know, like a cursed Dorian Gray style portrait, and was so horrified at what she had done that she destroyed the portrait and killed herself, I don't feel like my response would be, I loved her so much, I just had to keep a copy of the portrait.
Hey, man, listen.
Well,
then, you know.
Like, I know we wouldn't have an episode if there wasn't.
Yeah. And also, you know,
they included the plot where he killed himself. The dude could still be alive, or he could have just died of natural causes. They put the part in where he killed himself to bury the secret.
Hey, listen, you are older and more mature than Mayuko is.
Okay,
so, like,
fair
what
enough.
she says is, she says, listen, have you ever been in love? And Kenta says, of course I've been in love. And she's like, okay, no, well, let's back up a second and define terms. Have you ever actually been in love and not just, like, had a crush on somebody? And Kenta doesn't say anything. He's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. And she's like, this is he worked so hard on this. It's the only thing I have left of him. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Probably a mistake, but here we are.
It's definitely a mistake.
So at this moment, Kenta gets a call on his digitizer. And it's Dr. Kubota saying, like, hey, we've got Megaranger business to deal with. Come, be a superhero. Transform into a superhero and come be a Megaranger right now. We need you.
Right.
Which is bad because Kenta is still in the middle of a conversation with Mayuko.
Right. I really love that he did not bother to take it off of speakerphone. So he says, listen, I don't understand love, but I understand how you feel, which you don't, because what she feels is love, and you literally just said you don't understand it. But okay.
Hey, listen, again, he's like a 17-year-old guy. He thinks he feels a lot of things that he has no idea about.
Oh my gosh. You know, I actually had in most ways a pretty happy teenagerhood, but I can tell you, if you are not a teenager anymore and you don't have occasion to interact with a lot of teenagers and you think to yourself, man, I wish I could go back to high school for whatever reason, let me assure you, as a fully grown adult who does interact with high schoolers, I would die 1,000 deaths before I went back to being in high school. And I liked high school. Anyways. So
Kenta
they've
runs
got
off.
the chip. Kenta runs off. So in that Ezra dimension, they've got the chip. Shibbolena creates the thing. They did not opt to do my twist ending that I retroactively created for them, which would have been the best ending of this episode, which is this creature is specifically designed to exist in outer space, and it literally was crushed to death the instant it existed by the pressure of atmosphere. They didn't do that. They really could have.
Wouldn't have been much of an ultimate life form if it did. Maybe the penultimate life form. The antepenultimate life form.
Yeah. So they make this thing, and
it's like it's like a space manta ray man with like
it's a weird
tentacle things coming out of his shoulders.
Yeah. So it's on Earth, and Ugande's kind of jealous. He's like, "Oh, this thing is the ultimate life form. It's so cool." Here's its thing. Is it eats energy. Like it absorbs energy through its like weird antenna.
Yeah, so it shows up and it's sucking electricity out of the power grid, right? Kent is the first on the scene. He arrives and he tries to like shoot this thing, right?
Does not work.
But Ugande is like, hey, I know that y'all told me not to go down to Earth yet because I'm not accustomed to my new body enough yet. But I'm just going to be on Earth right now without telling you that I'm leaving. So all of a sudden, Ugande is just in the fight. And he's like, I hate Kenta so much because he's the one guy I've ever lost to. And this ultimate life form needs to have some time to absorb energy to the point where it can become unstoppable. So I am going to stall Kenta until it can absorb the energy, and then whatever, I'll bounce after I kill this person I hate.
Yeah.
They fight for a while. It goes super, super bad for Kenta. Kenta tries to hit him with the drill saber. He catches the drill saber and breaks it in half, which is not good for Kenta. And then he throws Kenta on the ground into a puddle and just stands on his head and tries to drown him in like a 3-inch deep mud puddle. It's rough.
Yeah, it is. It is surprisingly raw, I would say.
Yeah, Ugande is not interested in Shibolina's sort of plans where there's like layers and things going on and, you know.
Yeah, no, dude, he just wants to like roll up and drown a man in a mud puddle.
Right. It's, yeah. Thankfully, the other 4 do arrive before this is able to be completed.
So the other Rangers arrive, and this is cool. I feel like it really should have had more lead up, but we do finally get a cool merged weapon.
Yeah, which is weird because, as I said, the drill saber was just broken. So this is a combo weapon, but it's only a combination of the other 4 weapons.
Yeah, I mean, well, that just leads me to believe that there are like different iterations of this combination.
Yeah. So
right, like
this one is called the multi-attack rifle, which is more of a multi-rifle attack, I guess, because it only does one thing. It's not attacking multiple times. It is just a thing that is made out of multiple other things.
Yeah. So
they shoot Ugande. He's like, okay, whatever. I did what I came to do. It's all on the ultimate life form now. One weird thing about the ultimate life form is it's the only monster we've had so far that isn't the something Nezare, because he's not actually a Nezare monster.
Good point.
Like they cooked him up and, you know, send him down there, but they didn't design this. But
he is not a he's not a twisty boy. So what's her name? Michiko?
Mayuko.
Mishima? Mayuko, sorry. So Mayuko comes running in. She gets attacked. Ulf is absorbing electricity, and she yells, "Aim for the antenna." And Kenta, as Mega Red, says like, "Oh, like, I know I literally just said it, man. I feel like a dope." I wrote down that her name was Saotome.
That's her surname.
Oh, okay. That's probably why I just got mixed up. So anyways, he's like, "Saotome sensei." And she's like, "How do you know my name?" And he's like, "Oh, you must have misheard me." "Nope." And she's like, "She definitely already heard you call her by name. She knows it's you, Kenta. It's fine."
Well, and she also already knew from the other scene, and he knows that she already knew.
Yeah, I have no idea why he's trying to keep the secret at this point. So Pink uses Mega Capture to weaken the ultimate life form, and then, this is a cool moment, he just goes giant on his own.
Yeah, I mean, they do shoot his antenna before he does this.
Oh, yeah, they shoot his antenna. I'm just saying he doesn't need BBDB to show up to, like, inject him with the giant virus. He just, like, does it.
Man, you would think that Kenta, who, as we know, his one skill, like his one thing that makes him a good Megaranger is that he's good at video games. And it's like, okay, here is a monster. He's very difficult. He has these 2 wiggly antenna things sticking out. Like, obviously those are the weak points.
Right, like that's the red nose, man. You just got to shoot at it.
Right,
like obviously.
Like anyone could tell that is their weakness if they have ever played a video game. But he needs the person who designed the thing to come tell her, which is fine. So they do that. It grows. They call Galaxy Mega. This fight does not last very long. Because we've kind of already gotten... Like, the main climactic moment was, like, Kenta almost dying and then them finding out the weakness. This is just to put a couple other minutes into the show of big robot fight.
Yeah, it's not terribly interesting. There is a cool moment where they sort of, like... They grab him by the antenna, and and swing around. So that's pretty cool. And then they do like this like cool sword throw move, which is a little bit different than something they've done before.
Yeah, it's the Mega Flash Arrow, where like the sword kind of turns into an energy bolt that they just throw at it. And then once it's stuck in them, it turns back into a sword, and then it explodes. Very fun.
It was pretty boss. So then that's it for the Ultimate Life Form. So we go from there back to school, and Satome is leaving, and they're like, oh my gosh, you were so great. We learned so much from you. And she's like, I learned so much. I learned even more from you guys. Just real quickly, man, I don't know. Maybe other teachers are like more like wonderful and like just sort of with love or whatever than I am. But I have never been in a class where I've come out at the end of it and been like, man, these kids taught me just as much as I taught them. That's never been true. That's just not, it's nonsense. Or maybe those people who say that are very bad at their job.
Like, I should have known all this stuff before, but boy.
You should be, the volume of learning should mostly be on their end, my dude.
Okay, now to be fair,
that's your job.
In this instance, it's a little different than your teaching experience, of course, Dave, because none of your students, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't go into a lot of details when I talk to you about your job, but I don't think any of your students have been a team of superheroes who have saved you from a monster that you created.
Yeah, definitely not from a monster that I've created. I will, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Are any of my students members of superhero
so that's a little different in this case. Maybe she did have sort of... She's having an unusual day. We can say that at the very least.
So, she says, Kenta, special thanks to you. I have a homework assignment for you. While I'm gone, you need to learn what love is. And then she gives him a little kiss on the cheek, and the girls straight lose it.
Yeah, they're like fanning themselves and trying to not faint. Koichiro is not thrilled about this. He's like, no, my beautiful teacher, not girlfriend, who I never actually talked to really. Teacher rollerblades away. I'm sorry, it's 1997. She rollerblades away.
She clearly rollerblades.
And she's like, hey, goodbye. I'll be better prepared to teach science next year, so, whatever. And Shun is like, guys, she's not going to be back for a year. This is our last year. So why are you like put her out of your mind? You're done. Like, you're never going to have an opportunity to see her again. By the time she comes back, we'll be out of here. And Kenta, because he's dumb, you see, this is the joke. He says, it's cool. I'll just repeat a year so that I can still be here by the time she comes back, which is missing 2 points. The first point is that that's a terrible idea. The second point is that if she comes back and he is still a student, then they're definitely not ever going on a date. If he is at least graduated, then there's at least a version of that that's not like horribly creepy and potentially illegal. And certainly unethical. Like, Kenta, like, what you should be doing is doing your absolute best to graduate and, like, move away from a position where she would be your teacher.
In theory.
And then you can just come back and visit if you know where she is and she wants to see you. Anyway. Bad move, Kenta. All around, but fun episode. That is the end of this episode, Dave. But of course, it's not the end of our episode, because first we need to figure out where this ultimate life form lands in the Creature Royale. Not super high, I don't think.
Yeah, so I will say he has kind of a Meteor Bem vibe to him.
Well,
but
yeah,
I feel
he's
like
got
that's
that sort
just
of like
because he's like
alien aspect to it.
Yeah,
right?
like he's an alien from outer space or whatever. But like Meteor Bem is spot number 44, and he's not anywhere close to that.
No,
because for an entity called the Ultimate Life Form, is actually kind of a nothing.
Yeah, okay, because like he's not a character. He's not even, honestly, he's barely the monster of the week, because the real threats here are like Shibalina doing stuff and Ugande doing stuff. Like, Shibalina is trying to get this monster up and running, and is being manipulative and attacking. And then Ugande comes down and is trying to help the monster get established. But once it actually comes time to fight this thing, it's barely a fight. They shoot it twice.
Yeah.
And that's like, it doesn't say anything. It exists. The only really notable thing about it is that they did extra, like, art to put in to show you, like, the concept of what he was supposed to look like when they were designing him. But, like, he's a big pile of nothing.
Yeah. So, like, look-wise, I don't know, he kind of looks like, what's the dude's name? Stingray Nezare. He's got kind of a Stingray vibe. I'd put him down by Stingray Nezare, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, probably below Stingray Nezare. Stingray Nezare at least has a coherent look.
Yeah, and I'd actually probably put him... I'd actually keep going. I don't like him as much as Cherry Blossom Viscount or MM Shirisky, the best mechanic.
Okay, so do we just want to put him, like, right up, like, in the nothing slots above the people who are, like, actively offensive?
Well, he's still better than Father Magnet, I would say.
Right, the magnet monster that lost because of magnetism.
Because of magnetism, yeah. I would say he's better than... but he's not as good as Laser Lizard, so...
Sure. So, hey, sounds
so
great to me.
Go. Ultimate Life Form clocking in at number 186.
Bad showing for the monster, but again, a fun episode of the show. Bit of a lull this week, I guess. But next week, Dave, I've already watched next week's episode. Get hyped for that one. Because the monster goes like full Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's extremely good.
Oh man, I'm excited about that already.
In a way that you... Okay, we'll just talk about it next week. Because I don't want to go too far into it. Because it's a look, man. Anyway... That is going to do it for another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. If you want to get any updates on future episodes or check out the things that we're talking about on Twitter, we are at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. If you want to rate and review on there, that would be very nice of you, or tell a friend. Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. If you'd like to listen to any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.